Hello and welcome to the Crone Zone. I'm Lynn, and today we come to card 16 of the Major Arcana, which is the Tower. And 16, 1 and 6 are 7, and so this is related to the Chariot card. Let me get that there, the Chariot card, and also to the other sevens from the Minor Arcana. So if you could take out all of those four there from the minors, those that are sevens, then we can look at the tower as part of the journey of that seven energy. Now, as I'm recording this, we're hitting really stormy, thundery weather this July and very heavy rain and storms. Now, thunder's always been thunder and lightning's always been one of my favorite things, but I can't help thinking how appropriate these storms are for this lightning struck tower, which is the symbol we have here. Of course, the symbol of the tower is one that's very present to us mentally. We think of the princesses like Rapunzel who are imprisoned in a tower, or the Lady of Shalott who also lives in a tower. And of course, that very sad event of the Twin Towers, 9/11, will also be in our minds. This is a very ancient and potent symbol. Think of the Tower of Babel, which is mentioned in the Bible. Actually, never completed because nobody could speak the same language. God intervened and made sure it wasn't completed. But let's consider now what this means when it comes up in a spread. And we're trying to interpret this as a message or an indicator for us personally. Okay, thank you. There has been a sudden violent lightning strike on the tower. Flames are coming from the darkened windows, and people are being hurled to the floor, to the ground. The large golden crown which had been on top of the tower is toppled, and it too will go crashing down. There's a dark sky indicating a storm, and it's lit only by the intense bolts of lightning. And on the face of it, we're looking at the scene of a disaster. So what are the meanings? What are the range of meanings when this card comes up in a spread? It always means something totally unexpected. It's a bolt out of the blue. And it can either, go in two ways. We will be knocked sideways for good or bad. It will be unexpected and we will not see it coming. It will come from outside. On the plus side, it can mean sudden illumination, those amazing aha moments which suddenly bring instant understanding of something which has been bedeviling us or holding us back. And these sudden flashes of deep understanding can change our views, our beliefs and us permanently. It could be the igniting spark of creative inspiration. Maybe it's what Watson and Crick felt, finally understanding the structure of the DNA double helix. And of course, there is the less positive side, or something which may seem less positive when it first happens. That would be that something in our lives on which we have depended, we've built our life on it. The structure of our life has been built on it. And suddenly it's swept away at a stroke. The rug is pulled from under our feet. We get a rude awakening. I suppose to know whether the lightning strike on the tower is a blessing or a curse, maybe we need to consider the tower itself. So let's take a bit of a look at it again. So we'll see this is very isolated. It's sitting in the darkness on its own pinnacle or finger of rock. And the rock elevates it even higher. It's very elevated from all of the things surrounding it, right up there in the clouds. As we can see, there are clouds around it. So it's risen very, very high indeed. It's elevated itself very, very high. There's nothing else around the tower. It has no door. There doesn't seem to be any way out of it. And on top of it, has had a rather vainglorious crown. You know, it has crowned itself in glory, golden glory. And that's been struck and is toppling now. I'd like to consider the figures as well. They're too large for the tower. It cannot have been comfortable in there for figures that size. The building just isn't big enough for them. I must have felt incredibly cramped and confined. So this brings us to the question then, are we seeing destruction or are we seeing liberation? I think to explore that in more detail and to dig deeper, in order to do that, we need to look at the journey of the sevens. So let's return to the image of the young charioteer leaving the city to strike out and make his way in the world. All the bright yellow in the background stands for consciousness. And I think it's interesting that the wheels on his chariot are the same yellow colour. It is his conscious awareness, therefore, which is allowing him to move forward and make progress. Now, there's a big difference too between his canopy of stars and the dark background to the tower. The star is always a symbol of the whole self, the soul. And he wears this on his head, showing that he's being guided by his higher self. That's very different to the worldly crown the tower boasted, which has been toppled. Now, let's look at the chariot itself and the tower, because there are similarities. Both are made of the same solid, heavy grey material. We said when we looked at the chariot, it doesn't look easy to move this thing. It appears to be made of concrete almost. Now, the chariot must have stopped moving for some reason. It's lost its yellow wheels of consciousness, and instead of being a vehicle under the command of the charioteer, it's become a doorless structure to its own glory. It can no longer move, and the people within can no longer move. They are prisoners. We can conclude from this that the tower is not a good place to be, and that breaking it down is pretty essential. But how has it happened that we've started out so hopefully as a charioteer and ended up so abysmally trapped that we need this rescue of the lightning strike? Well, I think it can be that our personal drives and ambitions become railroaded by the institutions and organisations of society into which we fit in order to function. Sometimes we can get so busy running the rat race or climbing the greasy pole, so hypnotised and overworked, that we lose sight of what everything is about. On the other hand, another meaning might be that we've built up a false edifice for ourselves. We've escaped into a fantasy world where we see ourselves as quite different from what we actually are. We build castles in the air and then we live in them. We put ourselves into ivory towers, which eventually must come down if we are to grow and if we are to integrate into a much bigger wholeness, which will be so much better for us. Let's look at what the other sevens have to say on this theme. The Tower looks like the charioteer's classic midlife crisis. Let's have a look at how the sevens express this for us. There's a personal dishonesty about the Seven of Swords. This is where his ambition has sneakily betrayed him. If we think of the sword of truth, the sword representing the sword of truth, little by little his sense of what's really of value has been stolen away from him. He has colluded and evaded and not been clear in his thinking. He's convinced himself of things for expedient reasons, things which he knows deep down are not true for him. Then we come to the Seven of Wands. He's fought so hard to make it, often neglecting many things in life with a fiery inattention to the daily things. We noticed the mismatched shoes before. Do they even fit him? He doesn't know. He's much too busy in the fray, hypnotised and overworked. Next we come to the Seven of Cups. Just look at all the illusory fake desires society offers us. It's a real advertiser's dream. We're chasing the car, the house, the swimming pool, the glory, all the things that glossy ads tell us are synonymous with happiness, but which are actually nothing of the sort. They are hollow. They will never satisfy us. And so lastly, we come to the Seven of Pentacles. And the figure considers the pile he's made, thinking it's still not enough, never going to be enough, he still needs more. But there's a sense of despondency there as he looks at the heap he's amassed. What's it all for? What does it all mean anyway? So what? Whatever we've built our lives on, which is false or restrictive, or whatever limiting views, beliefs and values we have, the lightning will strike the tower. We will automatically be liberated from those. We will expand. We will no longer be confined. And this can be seen in many ways as an act of God. Because if you notice, there are these golden goblets which are falling, 22 of them, which some people say represent the 22 cards of the major arcana. But they're also thought to be the yods of God. So this is a divine intervention. It may feel harsh. It will feel potentially harsh or perhaps surprising, or at best, I suppose, a little awe-inspiring. And yet, the more we can adapt to this, the easier it will be for us. So wherever we have built a false creation, be it in career, faith, ego, personality, wherever we've done that, we will have the lightning strike eventually. In Buddhism, there's a force called Vasra, which is a divine destruction of the inflation of the ego, not the ego itself. we can't destroy that, not this side anyway of the Great Divide, but of the inflation of the ego. It's puffed upness, it's false inflation. There's also that myth of the Lady of Shalott I'd like to return to. The Lady of Shalott is imprisoned in a tower and she cannot see the real world. She can only look at the reflection of the world in a mirror. And from that, she weaves these elaborate tapestries based on the mirror world that she sees, not the real world. And of course, something happens to crack that mirror. It cracks from side to side. Um, so, yes, that must end. So, is it breakdown, breakthrough? Is it destruction? Or should we not see it more correctly as liberation? And remember, there's an old Indian saying, I think, that a tragedy not thought on for 10 years can become a blessing.